Buildings and courtyards, pipes and streets, canals and cables, parks and towers, forests and lakes have all been woven together to form a city, Riga. To understand the city, you have to get to know it. Rigas Urban Fabric covers a rolling seaside plain where 800 years ago a city began to take shape. Rigas Urban Fabric. The Daugava is Riga's mother. When the city was born in the 13th century, the river was the main cargo route for ships traveling from Russia to Europe. The river divided Riga into two parts, which were joined by a bridge only 5 centuries later. Until the middle of the last century, the Daugava carried rafts of lumber to the city's sawmills, which were located on islands in the river. Riga grew up on the shores of the Daugava at the mouth of the Riga and beside Livonian villages as a settlement for knights, monks, German and Russian traders, and Latvian craftsmen, all of whom inhabited its dark, narrow streets. The city's pride and joy was St. Peter's Church, which had the highest wooden spire in Europe at the time, as well as the Riga Dome, St. Jacob's Cathedral, and St. John's Church. The city's streets were squeezed between defensive walls and ditches. In preparation for battle during the Swedish period, in the 17th century, a military settlement called the Citadel was constructed next to the city. Pārdaugava formed a string of villages inhabited by Latvian fishermen and craftsmen. Today, a series of thoroughfares built atop the former streets stitches together the centuries-old quilt of remote, modest settlements. The only testimony to the residents' concern for their city's protection is the place named Torņakalns and memories of the Red Tower. In the 18th century, the tiny homes in Pārdaugavas colorful fabric stood alongside stately manors for wealthy Latvians and summering Germans from the old city. In the mid-19th century, medieval fortifications were dismantled and replaced by boulevards. The fabric of Riga's most opulent section was woven quickly and elegantly. Esplanade Park became home to the Art Museum, the Art Academy, and the Orthodox Cathedral. The boulevards were lined with the Riga Polytechnic Institute, now the University of Latvia, the National Theatre, the National Opera, and other public buildings. Wealthy Rigans were proud of their urban villas. These days, their lavish apartments are home to embassies and hotels, which stand alongside shopping arcades and the Bergs Bazaar. In the early 20th century, a neighborhood of stately summer homes was built outside the city. Modeled after the English Garden City, the exquisite lace of Mežaparks streets winds through a pine forest. Today, Mežaparks also contains homes built in later decades. After the ramparts were dismantled, Riga flourished. In the early 20th century, on the right bank of the river, atop a Swedish-era grid of streets, two outdoor sections of town were created, the Peterburg and Moscow neighborhoods. New homes were erected in areas once filled with vegetable gardens. Art Nouveau masks on luxurious apartment buildings hid the dark facades of the inner courtyards. Latvian architects used national ornaments to create the city's new image. The Industrial Revolution in the mid-19th century brought the railroad to Riga. Traffic circles and junctions formed where train tracks crossed city streets. The railroads were followed by factories, which lay beside the dense network of train tracks and branches of the Daugava. Workers' homes lined the streets leading away from the city, where they were interspersed with local churches. After the First World War, President Ulmanis began reconstruction work in Old Riga. He wanted to transform the Germanic medieval Hanseatic trading port into the capital of the new Latvian state. The occupation in World War II destroyed the Latvian state and threw Old Riga's web of streets into disarray. After the war, the area surrounding Town Hall Square underwent drastic changes. Ruins were cleared, old buildings torn down, and new ones built in their place. Since the late 20th century, by renewing the House of Blackheads, the Town Hall, and other historic buildings, architects have tried to mend the city's ancient fabric. Ditches and country roads marked the outskirts of Riga until the Soviets stitched new urban ornaments in their place. When the new residential neighborhoods were being built, old homes were crowded together with multi-story buildings. Never before had the city acquired so many homes equipped with basic amenities. Planners pondered how best to string together these standardized residential boxes. Each period had its own pattern. Heksnats in Purciems, cones in Iljuciems, these are the nicknames architects gave to their new creations. In the 21st century, Riga is flowing outside its borders. Business and shopping centers are sprouting up alongside large thoroughfares, and new villages which imitate urban street patterns are being constructed outside the city. Supermarkets are larger than many of Riga's city blocks. Ribbons of streets cover the city's ancient fabric, because modern-day Riga is dominated by the automobile. Today, a new urban fabric is forming in Ķīpsale and in Klīversale, where construction has begun on the National Library. Torņakalns and Lucavsala, where Rigans still cultivate vegetable gardens, will also be transformed. High-rises are finding a place on the Daugavas former islands in order to preserve Old Riga's panorama. A lack of bridges is the only thing temporarily delaying their construction.